Hey, let me ask you a question. Ever felt drained after interacting with someone like all your energy just got sucked out? Chances are you've been dealing with a toxic person. And trust me, we've all met one or a few. Today, we're going to dive deep into social intelligence and reveal some powerful psychological tricks you can use to handle and even teach toxic people a lesson. So stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll have the tools to deal with them like a pro. Now, I want to be clear, this isn't about revenge. This is about empowerment. Toxic people thrive on manipulation, control, and draining your emotional energy. But once you see through their tactics and learn how to respond effectively, you'll flip the script and they'll never know what hit them. Toxic people come in all shapes and sizes. They're the ones who leave you feeling emotionally exhausted after every conversation, who seem to take pleasure in pushing your buttons. But how do you know someone is toxic? Let's break down a few key signs. First, they never take responsibility. You know those people who are always playing the victim? No matter what happens, it's never their fault. You could point out their behavior calmly, and somehow, you're the one to blame. According to Dr. George Simon in Sheep's Clothing, toxic people often use manipulation to twist reality in their favor. This is known as gaslighting, and it can leave you questioning your own judgment. Next, they have a knack for making everything about themselves. Have you ever tried to share something important, only for them to hijack the conversation and turn it into a story about their life? This self-centeredness is another hallmark of toxic behavior. It's all about control, making sure the attention is always on them. Another sign is inconsistency. They're super charming one day and incredibly rude the next. It's that emotional roller coaster that keeps you on edge, never knowing which version of them you're going to get. Toxic people love to keep you guessing, and this unpredictability is how they maintain power over you. And finally, watch out for people who seem to drain you. Toxic people are emotional vampires. They leave you feeling exhausted, anxious, or upset. If you often feel worse after talking to someone than you did before, that's a huge red flag. So, now that we know what to look for, let's get into the fun part. What can you do about it? The first psychological trick is something called the gray rock method. Imagine a gray rock, dull, boring, and uninteresting. That's exactly what you want to become to a toxic person. The key here is to be as emotionally unresponsive as possible. Toxic people thrive on drama and emotional reactions. So when you give them nothing to work with, you deprive them of their power. They'll quickly lose interest when they realize they can't manipulate you. It's like cutting off their energy supply. Next, we have the power of mirroring. This technique comes from the field of psychology and is often used to build rapport. But when dealing with toxic people, you can flip it on its head. When they try to manipulate or provoke you, reflect their behavior back at them, calmly. For example, if they accuse you of being selfish, instead of getting defensive, ask them, "Do you think that's how you've been acting lately?" It forces them to confront their own behavior without you having to argue. One of my personal favorites is setting boundaries and enforcing them like a fortress. Toxic people hate boundaries because they limit their control over you. According to Brené Brown in her book Daring Greatly, healthy boundaries are the key to self-respect. A good trick here is to be very clear but not emotional. For example, if someone constantly criticizes you, you can say, "I won't continue this conversation if it's not respectful." Toxic people hate when they can't provoke you, and by setting boundaries, you're teaching them that their behavior won't fly with you. Here's a subtle but effective trick. Use silence as your weapon. Silence makes people uncomfortable, especially toxic people. They expect you to react, to defend, to argue. When you respond with silence, it forces them to confront the awkwardness and, in many cases, reflect on their own behavior. It's a psychological power move that works wonders. The next time a toxic person tries to push your buttons, instead of responding immediately, pause. Let the silence hang. It's a conversation killer in the best way. Another trick is detachment. Toxic people are emotional roller coasters, and they'll drag you along for the ride if you let them. But when you mentally and emotionally detach from their drama, you regain control. This doesn't mean you stop caring, but it means you stop letting their chaos affect you. As Marcus Aurelius once said in Meditations, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this. and you will find strength. Detachment is your shield. But here's the big question. How do you avoid toxic people in the first place? First, pay attention to your gut. As Malcolm Gladwell talks about in Blink, our instincts often pick up on things before our conscious mind does. If something feels off about someone, trust that feeling. Toxic people often wear masks in the beginning, but the cracks will show if you're paying attention. Second, surround yourself with positive, supportive people. Toxic individuals tend to prey on those who feel isolated or insecure. But when you're surrounded by strong relationships, it's harder for toxic people to get a foothold in your life. Build a strong circle, and they'll serve as a buffer against toxicity. Finally, learn to say no. Toxic people hate hearing no, but it's one of the simplest and most powerful tools you have. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. If someone's behavior is harming you, you have every right to say no and walk away. To wrap this up, remember that dealing with toxic people isn't about outsmarting them. It's about protecting your own mental and emotional well-being. The best lesson you can teach a toxic person is that they have no power over you. And once you master these psychological tricks, they won't. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about social intelligence, emotional resilience, and how to navigate tough relationships, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. And remember, you have the power to shape your environment. Don't let toxic people take that away from you. Until next time, stay sharp, stay strong, and keep mastering your social intelligence.